Most people spend their lives searching for something that ironically is already within their reach. Riches are not some distant destination reserved only for the lucky few or the exceptionally gifted. No, riches begin with a thought, a single idea accepted as truth. You are closer to wealth, success, and abundance than you've ever allowed yourself to believe. But before anything outside you can change, something inside you must awaken. That's what we'll do together. You see, the most powerful truths in life are often the most overlooked. They're not hidden behind vaults or buried under mountains. They're hidden in plain sight, camouflaged by our habits of thought. And until we examine those thoughts, we keep walking past the treasure chest with the key already in our pocket. I'd like you to stay with me for a few moments, not because I have something to sell, but because I want to remind you of something you may have forgotten. I want to help you reawaken a truth that has the power to change the direction of your life, permanently and wonderfully. And if you find something meaningful here, if a single sentence causes something to stir inside you, pause and consider liking or subscribing to this channel. Not for vanity's sake, but to let the message continue its quiet work in others. Sometimes all a man or woman needs is to hear the right idea at the right time, and who knows, perhaps that person is you, right now. Now let me begin with a law. Not a law of man, but a law of life. We become what we think about. That is the core principle. That is the seed from which every success, every failure, every fortune, and every tragedy grows. A person who believes they are unlucky will, with astonishing consistency, arrange their life to validate that belief. A person who believes that riches are beyond them will overlook every opportunity that would have brought them closer. And a person who begins to believe that abundance is their natural birthright, well, they will start to act, speak, and move differently. Their eyes change, their posture changes, and in time their world changes to match. You see, the greatest tragedy is not that most people fail, it's that they never actually begin. They never stop long enough to ask, what do I truly want? And what do I believe about my ability to receive it? They go through life responding to circumstances instead of shaping them. Their thoughts are borrowed. Their beliefs are hand-me-downs, and so their results mirror the collective mediocrity of the crowd. But you are not the crowd. If you were, you wouldn't be here. Something inside you knows you were made for more, not just survival, not just paying bills and waiting for weekends, but the full realization of your inner power. The question is not whether riches are possible, the question is whether you will believe long enough for them to unfold. Now, when I say riches, I don't just mean money, though money is certainly part of it. I mean freedom. I mean security. I mean the kind of life where your days belong to you, where your mornings are not ruled by dread but by purpose, where your thoughts are not consumed by worry but by vision. That is wealth, and to move toward it, you must first agree with the law that governs it. The law is this: you will receive not what you wish for, not what you beg for, but what you believe for, and belief begins with a decision. If you're still listening, you've already made the first move. You've broken away from the noise, the distraction, the endless stream of information that never transforms. You've decided to focus, and focus is the first act of power. Every great achievement began not with movement but with clarity. A man who does not know his destination cannot plot a course. But the moment you say, "This is what I want," you awaken forces within you that have been dormant. You begin to think in line with your destination, and that thought alone sets things in motion. Even now, as you listen, there are resources moving, people being positioned, opportunities aligning, because thought precedes form. Think of your mind as a garden. You cannot plant weeds and expect roses. If your dominant thoughts are fear, doubt, and lack, then your results will mirror them with exact precision. But if you plant courage, faith, and purpose, if you water those thoughts daily, you will harvest in time the fruits of those invisible seeds. Don't be deceived by appearances. The delay between planting and harvesting is not proof of failure. It is the law of gestation. But only those who believe long enough will ever see the bloom. So the real question is, what are you planting right now? With your thoughts, with your words, with your focus? Let me offer you a simple practice to begin. Take a small card and on it write one sentence. I am moving toward my worthy goal and nothing can stop me. Carry this card with you for the next 30 days. Read it each morning. Reflect on it each night. And anytime you feel fear or doubt arise, take out the card and read it again. Why? Because repetition is the road to belief, and belief is the birthplace of wealth. Most people think riches come from chance or connections, but they come from alignment. Alignment between who you believe you are and what you are moving toward. The card is your anchor, your lighthouse, your seed. You are closer to riches than you think, because the path begins inside you. No outside force is holding you back. No law of the universe says you must struggle or suffer to earn abundance. The same sun that shines on the wealthy shines on you. The same wind that carried great men and women to success is blowing in your direction. But you must raise your sails, you must take responsibility. You must stop looking for permission and instead choose to believe. Not someday, not when it's convenient, but now, today, in this moment as you listen. Choose to believe that you were made to prosper, and that nothing has the power to stop you except the limits you accept in your own mind. And so I leave you with this affirmation. If this message has stirred something inside you, if something deep within you says, yes, this is true, then I want you to say it with me out loud or in your heart. I am one with wealth and wisdom, free of fear and doubts. Type it below. Let it be your first public agreement with a higher truth. Say it, write it, carry it. For what you affirm with faith, you give life to. You are closer to riches than you think. The only thing left is to accept that truth and begin to walk in it. Most people are taught from an early age to wait. Wait for the right time. Wait for permission. Wait until circumstances improve. But the truth is, wealth does not wait. Opportunity does not pause until you're ready. It simply passes by those who are not prepared to meet it. And preparation, more often than not, is a mental state. The person who decides they are ready now begins to see opportunities that were invisible to them just moments before. It's not that they weren't there, it's that your thoughts were tuned to the wrong frequency. You cannot hear the music of success while listening to the static of doubt. And so the first movement toward riches is mental retuning, a deliberate act of switching channels from fear to faith. Now let's look at the principle in action. A person, for example, who thinks only of getting by will unconsciously filter the world for survival, not expansion. Every conversation, every encounter, every decision becomes a calculation in scarcity. They hesitate, shrink, second-guess, and by doing so they confirm their fear with their results. Meanwhile, someone else, perhaps with the same education, the same background, believes that opportunities are everywhere. They look for ways to serve, to grow, to create value. And because they look, they find. This is not theory, it's a law. We do not see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And when we change our inner state, our outer experience must follow. You may be wondering, how do I change that inner state if my environment tells me otherwise? That's a good question. And the answer is repetition. You must repeat the truth until it becomes louder than the lie. Every day for 30 days, you must flood your mind with the image of who you intend to become. You must rehearse your vision until it becomes more real to you than your past. And when doubt rises, as it surely will, you do not argue with it. You replace it. You say to yourself, this thought does not serve me. I choose to believe something greater. It may feel artificial at first, but all change does. Just like a new pair of shoes, your new self must be broken in. Let me offer you a very practical strategy. Begin your day in silence. Before you speak to anyone, before you check the news or step into the rush of the world, spend 5 minutes visualizing the life you are creating. See the person you are becoming. Hear the confidence in your voice. Feel the gratitude of already receiving what you've asked for. This short morning ritual is not a luxury. It is the cornerstone of a wealthy mind. And if you take it seriously, you will be amazed at what begins to change, not in a year, but often in a matter of days. The mind, once directed, becomes a servant of incredible power. But you must give it orders. We must also speak of a second law, one that few understand, yet it governs all outcomes in life. That law is this: you receive not what you hope for, but what you are willing to become. And becoming is not a passive act. It is work, inner work, daily work. And so I challenge you now, write down the name of the person you are becoming. Not the person you are today, but the version of yourself that holds the life you dream about. Write it, define it, carry it with you. This is no different than a map. Without it, you drift. With it, you advance. Slowly at first, then with momentum. And in time, you'll find that you have become the person you once only imagined. Now let's address a myth that has stopped millions. The belief that you must have it all figured out before you begin. This is false. Great success is never built on perfect plans. It is built on committed beginnings. Every master once started as a beginner. Every giant step began with the courage to take the first. And so I say to you, begin now, with what you know and with what you have. Do not wait. Do not delay. Your future self is waiting for you, not at the finish line, but at the starting gate. He is not concerned with your resources. He is only waiting for your decision. The rest, I promise you, will follow. Think now about the richest people you admire, not in terms of money alone, but in fulfillment, peace, and purpose. They all have one thing in common. They decided, that's it. They decided to pursue their calling, to solve a problem, to serve others, to master their craft. They did not ask for permission. They did not consult the crowd. They moved in alignment with their purpose. And that single decision moved mountains. It's not luck. It's not magic. It's law. As you believe, so shall it be done unto you. The moment you decide, all of life responds, not with fireworks, but with signs. Pay attention to the signs. You may notice, in the days ahead, a subtle shift. A person will say something that aligns perfectly with your new vision. A book will land in your lap. An opportunity will appear where before there was only routine. These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. Life is responding to your inner state. Do not dismiss them. Do not explain them away. Receive them. Act on them. Each one is a small whisper saying, keep going, you're on the right path. And the more you listen, the more they appear. Until one day you realize that everything has changed, and it began with one decision. I want you to write this in the comments. If you feel this message has found you at the right time, I am ready to begin. I don't need permission. This is more than a comment, it is a declaration. And sometimes a declaration is the spark that ignites the journey. By writing it, you commit. And by committing, you open the gate. Don't underestimate the power of public words. A man who speaks his intention becomes bound to it, not by force but by focus. And focus, sustained over time, is the blueprint for riches. You are closer to riches than you think. Not because the world has changed, but because your attention has. What you focus on expands. What you believe becomes real. What you act on becomes part of your identity. Do not waste this moment. Do not let this message be another idea that fades with the next distraction. Anchor it, write it, live it. Begin now. The distance between where you are and where you want to be is measured not in miles but in clarity, and you are already halfway there. One of the greatest illusions that hold people back from wealth is the belief that it must come from something external, an inheritance, a job promotion, a winning idea, or the perfect moment. But the truth is far more liberating and far more challenging. The foundation of all riches lies not in external resources but in internal alignment. The man who aligns his thinking with the laws of prosperity becomes a magnet for the very things others chase. He does not need to run after wealth, because wealth begins to move toward him. It's a law, unchanging and absolute. Like gravity, it does not care whether you believe in it, but if you cooperate with it, the results are inevitable. And what does internal alignment look like? It looks like consistency between your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Most people think about success but speak in fear and act in hesitation. They say they want financial freedom but spend their days worrying about bills and giving energy to the idea of lack. That is misalignment. And misalignment will always repel the very thing you seek. On the other hand, when you begin to think in terms of abundance, speak in terms of progress, and act with decisiveness, something begins to shift. Doors open. People notice. Ideas appear. That is the quiet power of alignment, and it's available to anyone who chooses it. You might ask, how can I maintain that alignment when everything around me says otherwise? That is the test. That is the practice. Your environment is not your dictator, it is your mirror. And if you do not like what it reflects, it is not the mirror that must change, but the image you project. This means taking full ownership, not just of your habits, but of your mental patterns. It means noticing when fear creeps in and deliberately replacing it with faith. It means surrounding yourself with voices and environments that support your higher vision, even if that means distancing yourself from what feels familiar. You must choose vision over comfort, always. Let's talk now about another principle, one that has transformed countless lives. It is this: what you appreciate, appreciates. When you begin to treat your current life with gratitude, no matter how humble, you raise its value. The man who gives thanks for a small income begins to treat it with dignity, and soon he finds it growing. The woman who honors her work, even if it's not yet her dream, begins to attract greater work. This is not superstition, it is law. The universe reflects your attitude. When you resent your life, it resists you. When you honor it, it expands. Wealth is not just about acquisition. It is about recognition, recognizing what is already present and multiplying it through appreciation. I want to challenge you now with a practical exercise. For the next 7 days, write down 10 things you're grateful for each morning. Don't skip a day, don't repeat the same list, and don't rush it. As you write, feel the truth of your blessings. Let your heart agree with the words. This simple act rewires your focus from lack to abundance. It tunes your mind to receive more. Because what you consistently acknowledge, you begin to attract. Gratitude is the emotional signal that tells the world, I am ready for more. And when you broadcast that signal with sincerity, life cannot help but respond. But gratitude alone is not enough. It must be paired with responsibility. You must become the kind of person who can sustain what you are asking for. A fortune placed in unprepared hands is soon lost. That is why so many who win riches lose them. They were not prepared inwardly to keep them. So while you are building your vision, you must also be building yourself. Study your craft, sharpen your character, strengthen your discipline. As you grow, your capacity expands, and when your capacity expands, you become a vessel large enough to hold the life you are calling in. This is why personal development is not optional. It is essential. Too often, people ask for a better life, but resist the growth it requires. They want the reward without the refinement. But life does not work that way. Wealth responds to preparation. The moment you begin to prepare in earnest, acting as if what you seek is already on its way, you send a signal that you are serious. And that seriousness separates you from the crowd. It places you in the 5%. It places you among those who are not waiting for conditions to improve, but who are improving themselves daily, quietly, patiently, and with full faith in the outcome. Now let's reflect on another powerful truth. Your mind is not a storage place, it is a workshop. And what you build in that workshop becomes the architecture of your life. So ask yourself daily, what am I building? Am I reinforcing limitations? Or am I constructing a vision of power, purpose, and prosperity? The quality of your thoughts determines the shape of your destiny. Every time you rehearse a complaint, you reinforce a wall. Every time you visualize a breakthrough, you build a bridge. Choose wisely. You are the architect, and time is the builder. But the blueprint must come from you. If you've been following this message, you already feel it, that subtle shift inside. The recognition that you are not far from wealth, but in fact walking steadily toward it. Not through chance, but through law. Not through luck, but through alignment. This is a sacred truth. Your future is not written in the stars. It is written in your thoughts, your decisions, and your discipline. And today you are writing a new chapter. You are closer to riches than you think. The path is not hidden, it is simply walked by so few that most assume it doesn't exist. But now you know better, and with that knowledge comes responsibility. Declare this now in the comments if this resonates with you. I am in alignment with abundance. I think, speak, and act in prosperity. This is not just an affirmation, it is an agreement with the laws that govern success. Speak it boldly. Let it echo in your mind. And as you carry this truth into your day, watch how your world begins to shift not through force but through resonance. What you become inwardly, you attract outwardly. That is the path, that is the power, and that is how you begin to walk into a life of increasing wealth. Let's now talk about something that stands behind every wealthy mind. Something so quiet, so often overlooked, and yet so foundational that without it, momentum will collapse, desire will fade, and vision will drift. That thing is clarity. Wealthy people think clearly. They may not always move fast, they may not always speak loudly, but they see with precision, they know where they are going. And because they know where they are going, they rarely waste energy. Clarity is the filter through which they make decisions. It's how they know what to say yes to, and just as importantly, what to say no to. Without clarity, even the most talented person will exhaust themselves chasing too many things, starting and stopping, pivoting at every turn, always wondering why nothing sticks. Clarity is a force multiplier. It gives even average actions exceptional power. A man who knows what he wants can wake up at 4 in the morning and feel more energized than someone who sleeps till 9 with no direction. Why? Because purpose fuels energy. It sharpens perception. It lights the path in front of you. And this is not something that just arrives. You don't stumble into clarity. You carve it. You define it. You wrestle with your thoughts until they take form. And when they do, something beautiful happens. Confusion begins to fade. Anxiety subsides. You feel like your life is moving in alignment with something greater than you, because it is. If you've been feeling scattered lately, it's not because you lack potential. It's because you've stopped asking yourself the right questions. What do I want to experience in this life? What problem do I feel called to solve? What would I gladly wake up for, even if no one paid me to do it? These questions are not motivational fluff. They are surgical tools. They cut through the noise. They push past the surface. And if you sit with them long enough, if you ask and re-ask with sincerity, you will begin to uncover the vision that is already written within you. It's been there the whole time, but now you must give it shape. There is a practice I recommend that has changed the lives of thousands. Find a quiet room. No noise. No distractions. Sit with a pen and a blank sheet of paper and begin to write the following sentence. 5 years from today, I am living a life I truly love, and it looks like this. And then let the words come. Don't edit. Don't judge. Just write. Let your subconscious reveal what you truly desire. Let your spirit speak before your mind censors it. This single exercise, if done with total honesty, can give you more clarity than 100 books or a dozen seminars. Because what you write is yours. It's not someone else's dream. It's not society's checklist. It's your own definition of wealth. Once you have clarity, you must revisit it daily. It's not enough to define the vision once. You must saturate your mind with it. Why? Because the world will constantly try to confuse you again. It will tempt you with noise, distract you with comparison, pull you into urgent but irrelevant tasks. Only clarity can protect you from this drift. That's why the wealthiest minds review their goals constantly. They write them, speak them, visualize them, not because they're unsure, but because they are at war with distraction. They know that what they think about most often becomes who they are, and so they guard their focus like gold. Clarity also sharpens communication. When you know exactly what you're building, others can feel it. Your words become magnetic. Your energy becomes focused. You no longer ramble. You speak with quiet certainty, and people respond to that. Investors, customers, partners, they can sense when a person has vision. They may not know how to explain it, but they know how it feels. And that feeling is trust. Trust opens doors. It draws resources. It creates momentum. And it all begins with your willingness to sit still, long enough to know what you truly want. Now let's take this deeper. Clarity not only defines your destination, it also reveals your identity. When you say, "This is the life I choose," you are simultaneously saying, "This is who I must become." And that's where the real growth begins. Because every dream demands a version of you that doesn't yet exist. You cannot drag your old habits into your new vision. They won't survive. Your excuses, your delays, your insecurities, they don't belong in the life you are building. So clarity isn't just a matter of focus. It is a standard, a mirror. It shows you the gap. And if you are brave enough to look at that gap, you can begin the work of crossing it. And now I must tell you a hard truth, one that few will admit, but many have lived. Lack of clarity is often a mask for fear. It's not that we don't know what we want, it's that we're afraid to want it fully. Afraid of judgment, afraid of failure, afraid of responsibility. So we keep things vague. We say we want freedom or more success, but we don't define what that looks like. Why? Because if we defined it, we'd have to pursue it. We'd be exposed. We couldn't hide behind ambiguity anymore. And so we delay. But I'm asking you now to stop delaying. Be specific. Be bold. If it matters to you, write it clearly. Own it. I want you to affirm this with me now. If you're ready to step into full clarity, if you're done hiding behind vague wishes and are ready to claim your vision, then write this in the comments. I see my path clearly, and I walk it with courage. Say it aloud. Type it below. Let your mind and body agree. Let this be the first day you stopped asking for permission to be precise. Because the man or woman with a clear vision is already halfway to wealth. They may not know all the steps, but they know the direction. And that, my friend, is enough to begin. The wealthiest people you will ever meet often have something in common that goes beyond income, assets, or business success. They move through life with a stillness inside them, a kind of calm certainty. They are not frantic. They are not reactive. And the reason is simple: they trust the process. They know that success is not an overnight phenomenon. It is the natural result of obeying certain laws over time, laws they have tested, proven, and internalized. Most people, however, do not trust the process. They try something once, and if the result doesn't show up immediately, they retreat. They doubt, they hesitate, they give up. But the law does not bend to our impatience. It bends to our faith. And faith, when put into motion over time, produces fruit so abundant it seems magical to those who watched from the sidelines. Let's talk about one of the most important laws of wealth ever discovered. It is the law of cause and effect. Simply stated, for every effect in your life, there is a cause. Your income is an effect. Your peace of mind is an effect. Your lifestyle, your influence, your relationships, all of them are results, and they all have roots. What you are experiencing today is the harvest of the seeds you've planted over the last year, the last 5 years, and in some cases, the last decade. There is no randomness to success. There is only sequence, only consequence. The wealthiest people understand this law, and that's why they don't panic during the waiting season. They keep planting, they keep tending, they keep aligning with the law, because they know the harvest must come. This understanding should fill you with peace, not pressure. It means that you don't need to guess anymore. You don't need to hope that one day things will magically work out. You can trace every result in your life back to the systems and patterns that produced it. And more importantly, you can begin planting new seeds today. Every time you learn something new, you've planted a seed. Every time you resist an old pattern of fear, you've watered that seed. Every moment you choose growth over comfort, you are changing your soil. And soon the old fruit will be replaced by something new, something you designed on purpose. Now here's the hidden truth. Most people are not willing to wait for the harvest. They expect instant results, and when it doesn't happen, they abandon the field. Imagine a farmer planting his crops, watering them for 3 days, and then digging them up to see if they're growing. He'd be called a fool. But that is exactly what most people do with their goals. They start a plan, they take a few steps, and then they start checking for signs that it's working. And when they don't see it quickly, they quit. But you are not most people. If you're here, it's because something in you knows that real wealth, lasting wealth, is worth the wait. And more than that, it's already underway. Let me give you something you can do this week that will radically shift your relationship to the process. Create what I call a harvest list. Take 10 minutes and write down 10 areas of your life where you want a new result. Then for each one, ask yourself this: what seed would someone need to plant, consistently and patiently, in order to produce this result 1 year from now? Do not overthink it. Just answer with honesty. Then look at your answers. You'll find that the life you want is not far away. It is just waiting on you to become the kind of person who plants those seeds every day. That is the way of the wealthy mind. It reverse engineers the future by aligning today. Let's also clear up a dangerous lie, that people who succeed are simply lucky or born in the right conditions. No doubt some people start with more resources. But countless stories exist of men and women who rose from nothing, no contacts, no privilege, no roadmap, and changed their destiny by planting relentlessly. What they had was not luck, it was understanding. They understood the laws of planting and harvest, and more importantly, they obeyed them. The world is full of intelligent people who disobey the law and wonder why they're broke. Intelligence is not enough. Action aligned with law is what produces abundance. There's a phrase you've likely heard before: you reap what you sow. But most people don't really believe it. If they did, they would live entirely differently. If they truly believed that every word, every thought, every act of service, every hour of study, every moment of stillness was a seed returning to them in multiplied form, they would be unstoppable. And the truth is, it does return. It must return. That is not my opinion. It is law. Immutable. Unbreakable. As sure as gravity. And when you begin to align with this law, you start living with a quiet power. You no longer rush. You no longer fear. You simply plant, knowing that the harvest is guaranteed. So the question you must ask today is not, how do I get more money? But how do I plant better seeds? It is not when will it come, but am I doing what must be done every day without fail? Wealth is not waiting for you in the clouds, it's waiting for you in your daily decisions. The way you speak, the way you show up, the way you think, the way you invest your time. Each of these things is either planting for poverty or planting for prosperity. You choose, and the law will do the rest. If this message has opened your eyes to the deeper process of wealth, I want you to write this in the comments now. I obey the law of planting and harvest. My wealth is growing. Say it out loud. Type it with conviction. Let the act of declaring it begin the shift in your identity. You are no longer chasing outcomes, you are aligning with laws. And because of that, you will not be surprised when wealth arrives. You will be ready. You will have earned it. And more than that, you will have become the kind of person who can sustain it. Let's now turn to one of the most powerful and least understood components of wealth, identity. You see, every result in your life, every number in your bank account, every opportunity that comes or goes, every door that opens or closes, is a reflection not merely of your actions, but of your self-concept. You cannot rise above the identity you hold in your mind. You may try, you may fake it for a time, but eventually you will return to the thermostat setting of who you believe you are. That's why the rich become richer, not just financially, but mentally. Their inner identity is calibrated to expect success, to assume abundance, to command results. And those who remain poor are often shackled not by lack of effort, but by an unspoken inner agreement with smallness. They work hard while still believing they are unworthy. And the mind, always obedient, always loyal, fulfills that script to the letter. It is not what you do once that defines you. It is what you believe about yourself consistently that creates your destiny. A man may win the lottery, but if he still sees himself as a struggler, the money will leave him. A woman may land a high-paying job, but if her identity is rooted in insecurity, she will sabotage the opportunity. This is not superstition. This is psychology. And unless you deliberately change the image you hold of yourself, your results will always circle back to the level you unconsciously accept. That is why visualization is not a gimmick. It is survival. Because if you do not see yourself as a builder, a contributor, a wealthy, focused individual, then the world will reinforce the lesser image you tolerate. Let me be clear, no lasting change happens without a shift in identity. Not surface-level goals, not temporary motivation, but a deep-rooted transformation in how you define yourself. And the only way to truly shift identity is through repetition and environment. You must speak the new belief aloud every day without fail. You must surround yourself with the people, the ideas, and the settings that reinforce that belief. You must act in accordance with that identity even before you feel ready, because readiness is a trap. Action precedes alignment. And when you begin to act like the person you want to become, the brain rewires itself. It stops questioning the new identity and starts accepting it as normal. And in time, the results begin to match. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who has always seen themselves as a broke person. They may never say it aloud, but they carry it in their posture, their tone, their decisions. Now imagine that person begins saying to themselves daily, "I am a disciplined builder of wealth." At first it feels like a lie, but they say it anyway. Then they begin to wake up earlier. They begin saving 10% of their income. They start reading one page of a book on prosperity each night. They change how they speak to others. They take more care in their appearance. They start treating themselves with more dignity. And over time, something shifts. They look in the mirror and the old identity no longer fits. They have become someone new. And that new self cannot help but attract new outcomes. This is why one of the greatest investments you can ever make is in upgrading your identity. Not your wardrobe, not your car, not your status, but your self-concept. Because when that changes, everything else follows. You speak with authority. You walk into rooms with presence. You make decisions quickly, clearly, with certainty. People notice it. They respond to it. Doors open that were previously locked, not because the world changed, but because you did. The moment you see yourself differently, the world recalibrates to match. That is the hidden power behind every major leap in life. So I ask you today, who are you becoming? Not what do you want, not what are your goals, but who must you be to live the life you imagine? Describe that person in vivid detail. What time do they wake up? How do they think? How do they speak? How do they respond to adversity? How do they treat themselves and others? This is not a fantasy. It is a blueprint. And when you rehearse it daily, it becomes real. That is the power of the human mind. You are not fixed. You are programmable. And if you do not program your mind deliberately, the world will program it for you. Let's rewrite the agreement today. No more small thinking. No more apologizing for ambition. No more tolerating environments that insult your spirit. You were not designed to merely get by. You were built for expansion, for excellence, for wealth. Not just financial, but spiritual, emotional, relational. And to step into that, you must first believe you are worthy of it. You must look yourself in the mirror and speak the truth even before it feels true. Because every new reality begins with a declaration, and that declaration must be repeated until it becomes your new standard. If you're ready to step into a new identity, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, but right now, then type this in the comments and speak it aloud. I am no longer who I was. I am becoming who I was born to be. Say it with conviction. Let it break the old pattern. Let it shake the old mask. Because the wealth you seek is already reaching for the version of you that matches its frequency. And the moment you align, it will arrive not as a surprise, but as confirmation. You are closer to riches than you think. Not because something outside of you is about to change, but because something inside of you just did. That shift, that click, that new standard you just accepted, that's the beginning of a different future. And it will not take 10 years. It will not be a long uphill battle. When identity changes, change is rapid. Because you stop sabotaging, you stop doubting. You start acting with integrity, with power, with clarity. And the world, like a mirror, reflects that back in kind. Let's now explore one of the final pillars of lasting wealth: decision. Not the kind of half-hearted decision we've all made 1,000 times, the ones we say with our mouths but don't back with our lives. I'm talking about the kind of decision that draws a line in the sand, a decision that closes the back door, a decision that says, this is the direction I am moving in, and nothing, no delay, no doubt, no setback will change my course. That is the moment where everything starts to rearrange itself around you. Because until you decide, you're still entertaining the idea of failure. And as long as failure remains an option, your results will reflect that hesitation. Decision is not a burst of emotion. It is a command. And the moment you issue that command, the war inside you begins to end. There's a secret that the most successful people live by. They decide quickly and rarely change their minds. Not because they are reckless, but because they are clear. They understand that clarity is more valuable than comfort. And so they decide. They don't ask the crowd. They don't wait for signs. They do not require validation. They look inward, and if it aligns with their vision, they move. Most people live in a loop of delay, always researching, always waiting, always doubting, and in that loop, they lose momentum. They lose self-respect, and they lose time. But the one who decides, who sets their mind and walks forward, triggers a cascade of consequences the world must respond to. Understand this: your destiny is waiting on a decision. Not a fantasy, not a wish, a decision. When a person finally decides, everything begins to shift. Their voice changes, their presence sharpens, their time becomes sacred. Their excuses dissolve, their actions gain weight, and their environment starts to take them seriously. That is the power of choice. You have it. You've always had it. But until now, you may have forgotten that the door does not open with desire. It opens with decision. You don't get a better life by hoping for one. You get it by claiming one. And that begins the moment you say, this is mine. And let's be honest, deciding is uncomfortable. It means stepping into responsibility. It means letting go of fallback plans. It means removing the luxury of blame. When you decide, you are no longer a victim of your environment. You are the architect of it. You can no longer say, I'm waiting on this, or they need to do that. You stand in front of the mirror and say, this is on me. And for many, that kind of ownership is terrifying. But for you, it should be freeing. Because if it's on you, then that means you're in control. And if you're in control, then you are not dependent on anyone else's permission to rise. Think about the most meaningful shifts in your life. They didn't happen gradually. They began with a single choice. Maybe it was to walk away from something that no longer served you. Maybe it was to pursue a path others didn't understand. Maybe it was to finally say, enough is enough. In that moment, you changed your entire trajectory. And what followed was not ease, but power. Because decision births power. When you stop entertaining other outcomes, your energy condenses. It focuses. It sharpens. And that energy, when applied consistently, moves mountains that once looked immovable. I want to challenge you now to make one decision, just one, that you've been postponing. It might be a new habit, a financial move, a conversation, a commitment to a dream you've hidden in the back of your mind. Whatever it is, bring it into the light. Name it, claim it, write it down, and most importantly, act on it today. Not tomorrow, today. Because the longer you wait, the more you train your mind to hesitate. And the more you hesitate, the more opportunity begins to evaporate. Remember, life respects decisiveness. It favors the bold. It waits for the one who no longer waits. Now here's something almost no one will tell you. Once you decide, you don't have to know every step. You just need to move. The path will reveal itself as you walk it. Clarity follows commitment, not the other way around. Too many people wait to feel certain before they move. But that's not how transformation works. You move, and then the certainty comes, like a fog that lifts only when you start walking forward. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Begin with the next right step. And when you've taken it, take another. That's how momentum builds. That's how wealth builds. And if you've made it this far, if you're still here listening, it means something in you is already shifting. Something in you is rising. That's not a coincidence. That's confirmation. So let me speak directly to that part of you. The part that knows you are meant for more. The part that's tired of circling the same mountain. The part that's ready to make a stand. I want you to say this with me. Say it in your mind. Type it in the comments. Write it on a card. I decide to rise. I refuse to wait. My future begins today. Let those words settle in. Let them rewrite the script. You are closer to riches than you think. Because the only thing that ever stood between you and the life you wanted was the courage to decide. And now that you've chosen, the landscape will begin to change. You'll see it in small ways at first, a shift in how you speak, how you walk, how others respond to you. Then in larger ways, new doors, new energy, new results. And in time you'll look back at this moment, not as another speech you listened to, but as the moment you crossed the threshold. The moment you burned the old map and picked up the pen. The moment you chose to lead your life. We've come to the final stretch, and by now, if you've been listening, not just with your ears but with your spirit, you've likely begun to feel something unshakable forming inside you. A deeper kind of clarity, a quieter kind of certainty. And perhaps for the first time you can sense the truth of what I told you at the very beginning. You are closer to riches than you think. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. Because your attention has shifted from external circumstances to internal control. And when that shift happens, everything else begins to fall in line. You no longer chase success, you align with it. You no longer ask if it's possible, you ask when it's arriving. That is the posture of power. That is the language of wealth. And you've earned the right to speak it. So let's solidify what you've built over these last minutes. Let's turn the ideas into action, the inspiration into identity. Because all the wisdom in the world means nothing if it's not lived. The great tragedy of modern life is that most people are drowning in information, but starving for transformation. But that won't be your story. You've heard the laws, you've seen the patterns, you've remembered what you forgot, that everything begins with thought, becomes formed through belief, and is multiplied through action. And that in the end, wealth is not a number, it is a reflection of who you've become, a mirror of your discipline, your clarity, your service, and your decision to walk a different road. Now here is the final law I want to leave you with. You must never return to the version of you that doubted this was possible. The old self, the one who hesitated, who played small, who questioned their worth, cannot follow you into the next chapter. That chapter is written by a new hand, one that moves with faith, one that speaks with intention, one that no longer negotiates with delay. From this day forward, you walk as one who is wealthy. Not someday, not when things align, but now. Today, because the mindset is already in motion, and where the mind goes, the body and the results must follow. So how do you live this from here on out? You repeat, you return, you review, not to remember but to become. Every morning you declare the truth. I become what I think about. I serve, therefore I receive. I plant, therefore I harvest. I decide, therefore I rise. Say it until you embody it. Say it until no part of your nervous system doubts it. Because the greatest wealth is not found in a portfolio. It is found in conviction. And when you are convicted, you move like the wealthy move. Quietly, confidently, without rush, without noise, but with absolute certainty. Let me ask you something. What would happen if you listened to this every day for the next 30 days? Not passively, but deliberately, with a notebook in your hand, with a decision in your heart, with action following every paragraph, what would happen to your mindset, your income, your relationships, your body, your faith? I'll tell you, everything would change, because you would no longer be living reactively. You'd be living ritually, and ritual creates rhythm, and rhythm creates results. This is why I urge you, don't just move on from this. Use it, live it. Let it become part of your structure. You are no longer looking for miracles. You are the miracle. You are no longer hoping someone comes to save you. You have remembered that no one is coming, but that's not bad news. That's power. That means it's you. And if it's you, then it's real. If it's you, then it's permanent. If it's you, then no one can take it. The tools are in your hands now. The truth is in your mind now. The fire is in your belly now. And the only thing left is to walk, to act, to build, day by day, brick by brick, seed by seed, until you look around and realize that the world outside now reflects the world you built inside. This journey we've taken together is not the end. It's the beginning of a new season. One marked not by panic or scarcity or self-doubt, but by strategy, service, sovereignty, and strength. And you will carry these principles with you not as slogans but as systems, not as motivation but as a mandate. You will become the kind of person who others look at and wonder, how do they do it? And you'll smile not because it was easy, but because it was earned. Because while others waited, you decided. While others doubted, you believed. While others gave up, you kept walking. If this message has become part of you, if it has confirmed something you've known all along, then this is your final declaration. Say it now, write it below, etch it in your mirror if you must. Speak it as a contract between you and the wealth that is already on its way. I am ready. I am responsible. I am rich in mind, in spirit, in life. Say it again, loud if you can, calm if you must, but say it. And let every future version of you remember this moment, the moment you stopped waiting for life to hand you riches and started being the kind of person wealth cannot resist. And if you believe this is a message that others need to hear, your friends, your family, your community, then share it. Like it, comment, not for vanity, but for victory. Your comment might be the one that changes someone else's path. And that too is wealth. Because the more you give of what you've learned, the more it multiplies. The law cannot fail, and neither can you, because the path has been laid. Now rise, walk it, and don't look back.